Hi, Derek. I have a burning question for you. I am so confused and just so curious about what is it inside of men with a capital M that makes it so difficult for them to want to read a book about relationships. What is it inside of men with a capital M that makes it so difficult for them to want to read a book about relationships or read a book about women and how we are and what we need? And I see men caring very much about us, working very hard for us, but then it's like they're not informed. They don't know what it is that we truly need. They're kind of running off of information about making their dad proud, or I'm not really sure what the information. There's like all this cultural information about what we want that isn't really accurate. And then there's also all these books about it. And I know that it's very common that women will leave a book for their husband on the toilet seat or at their nightstand, and that book will just sit there for years. Even one friend said, yeah, he read that book once I left, and then he loved that book and thought he wished he read it 3 years ago, but I was already done. I was already out the door. It was already over. So I'm really curious about that. Like, for example, my pastor gave my husband a set of books for men only, for women only, right? Of course, I've read both of them, plus like 3 other books about relationships in the time that, of 8 or 9 months ago that he gave it to him. Even, okay, Derek, the women's, not the women's one, the men's one for men only, it has a quick start guide. Like I'm a VCR. VCR. Like I'm a DVD player or like some technology thing that needs to be hooked up. Okay, cool, I am. That's fine. There's a flippin' quick start guide. I don't even think my husband read the quick start guide. It's a whole book. If he read this book, it's not even fat. If he read it, his life would become 100 times easier. Why? What is that? Could you explain it to me? You've asked me to be very vulnerable with my husband, to really open up and let him know. I feel very strongly that my husband has such a level of power to soothe me in such a deep way. Like no one else has this power. Like he is the one and only who has this power. And why, like, I can't tell him how to, I can't tell him how to wield that power. You've told me not to, even. So what I come up against when I find this vulnerability in my heart is that it's very hard to trust him with it when he can't even read a book about it. To have a book sitting on a toilet collecting dust for 3 years doesn't make me feel treasured. I know I am treasured. I know my husband would give anything to soothe me in the way that I'm seeking. So I'm baffled. I'm so baffled, and I hope you can help me understand what it is. Jane said if they read it, they think they're afraid they're going to have to do it, and they're afraid they can't do it. And she runs across, in her dating life, she runs across guys having like huge issues about they didn't make their dad proud, and they're like feel like they have to provide so much about providing. And I totally respect and love that and appreciate that about men. But I feel that they do themselves an incredible disservice to not take the time to learn. Like, they have to learn about their how to do their jobs. They have to learn about, you don't just like expect that you're going to just get a job and know how to do it without ever reading anything about your field. So I'm just really curious about this trait, and hope that you can help me with it. I think that a good percentage of people on the planet have a kind of a hole where their dad should have been, and the dad wasn't there, and often I really don't think it's because he didn't want to be there. I think he didn't know how to be there, and the not knowing how to be there was very, very uncomfortable, so he left. And I'm just really curious about this. Thank you.
Why don't men read self-help books? Only women do. And I thought that was a trust issues. I thought that was a very interesting question. So bear with me for a few minutes here and throw your ideas out. I will read them, but I just want to run with a couple thoughts here on why men don't read self-help books. I called one friend today and I was kind of bouncing the ideas around, and that's cool, Alex. So do I, obviously. Alex is a guy. Yeah. I obviously read self-help books. I actually wrote a self-help book. It's going to be out in a little while. It's still in editing. It takes a tremendous amount of time to get your self-help book out there. So I would have to say the main reason I believe that men don't read self-help books, and give me some hearts, throw those out there if I'm on the right track, and if you think I'm insane, I'm crazy, if you don't like my unshaved look here, then stop the hearts. But anyway, throw me some hearts and tell me if you like these ideas. So why don't men read self-help books? Okay, so the reason I wanted to come onto a cast and not just answer her with my own email was that the answer is directly related to what I teach couples in my couples counseling sessions. Hey, from Seattle. And the answer has to do with my keyword of vulnerability. That's just the word that is such a confusing word. And how do you learn vulnerability? Because that's the key in all my relationship training for men and for women. And, oh, thanks for the amazing glasses. So here's the interesting thing. Let me give you one thought. Men don't ask for directions. Let's just think about that for a second. What does that mean? Men not asking for directions means that they think they know everything, and it's pretty interesting because even though it's obvious we don't know everything, we're kind of built to know everything. We're hunters, right? In the hunter-gatherer scenario, we're hunters, and we really, really need to know everything. It's really important. And especially in this day and age, where we actually are always trying to learn self-confidence and how nature and nurture. That's a great question. Maybe we'll come back at the end here. After I get my thoughts out, I want you to throw some questions back and forth so we can answer them. Appreciate that. So men know everything. Now, I don't want you to hear this as just a criticism. I want you to hear it as something about how men can be understood further, okay? Reading a self-help book is a man admitting he doesn't know everything, okay? Now, in my couples sessions, when I help couples understand each other a little bit more, I always have to get both people to slow down to hear and understand each other, okay? Now, in doing that, I have to teach the man especially to do things like getting kind of messy, and messy means vulnerable, okay? And that's a man saying, I don't get it. I don't know how to do this. I'm confused. I don't know how to love you well. I wish I could love you well. I don't know how to do it. I want to do it better, okay? That is often the key thing that a woman needs to hear for some strange reason for her to open up and feel safe and connected. And the man rarely gets why that's working so well. All I do is kind of feed him some words and tell him, hey, just admit that you don't know what you're doing, okay? Now, what's so interesting about that is that it's the same exact answer to the question of why don't men get self-help books, okay? So one thing I want to say is that, first of all, reading a self-help book goes against everything in a man's nature about knowing everything, him not asking for directions. There's a reason for that, okay? So now these books, all these self-help books, what they do is they try to teach women how to abide by rules and how to understand men and even how to manipulate the man to get what they want. But they do not teach women how to be vulnerable. They teach women how to do the things kind of to tiptoe around the guy, hoping he'll open up somehow, hoping this magical thing will happen where he all of a sudden is close and intimate and vulnerable. But it never works. What the books don't teach women is that they keep criticizing the man. It's constant, constant, constant. The woman criticizes the man and says, you need to know more about intimacy. And then the woman says, you need to read this self-help book. But the problem is the book is geared towards women in the first place, okay? And the book doesn't help couples understand the problem. That's actually what I do. I help couples slow down enough to understand the problem. That's what I'm going to eventually get across to you fine people. And at the end of a year of doing this, let's say that all of you understand how to do this. I hope I frickin' learn how to do this, right? How to not have a pattern happen with a romantic partner where I feel criticized all the time by the woman. That happens to me, okay? But it's happened so much to me, and I worked through so much of it. I do know what I'm talking about and how to help people solve the problem. But I got to tell you, if I get into this pattern with a woman, I go seek the help of a therapist because I'm the last one the woman will listen to, okay? So, most women love the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, okay? But I got to say, men would love this book if there were pictures of women on Venus wearing sexy outfits. That's basically the reason men would buy that book, okay? Or if guys were on Mars playing baseball or football or golf or tennis or some sport, then men would buy the book, okay? So guys aren't interested in meeting men are from women. Men are from women. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. The other thing I want to say is that men are not from Mars, women are not from Venus. Men are from one constellation and women are from another constellation. The reason I say that is because our tender hearts and our connecting and our understanding of each other, that's really similar. But everything else, so much of how the brain is wired is different. And that's a hunter-gatherer type lecture I'm going to give at another time. Okay, so men are not from Mars, women are not from Venus. They're from different constellations. Okay, now also, I do believe that, and also if you find this interesting, please invite all your followers to come join this, because we all need to support each other in the unbelievably difficult thing of having better relationships. There is not a good book out there on how to resolve conflict. I'm going to teach you over the next year. Every single week I'm going to be on here. I'm gonna teach you how to resolve conflict. It is dissectable. So, and also the funny thing is, I looked up on the internet. I was curious how many books are bought by women that are self-help books. You know how many? 80%. You know what? I don't believe it. The other 20%, the other 20% of books are bought by men. But you know what? I bet you they're either not reading them or giving them to their women for Christmas. There's no way 20% of the self-help books are bought by men. My email address, if somebody could type it here, is Derek, D-E-R-E-K, at understandeachother.com. Even though my Twitter and my account here are Understand Us, the website is understandeachother.com, and my email is Derek at understandeachother.com. Okay, so now I looked up some of the latest best self-help books, and the books are called, let me tell you a few of them. They're called Act Like a Lady, Why Men Love Bitches, What You Want from Men, Love, Respect, Rules of the Game. Okay, so these books give exact information on how to out-manipulate men. So the women can out-manipulate their man so the women will get what they need. It doesn't work. Sorry, self-help gurus, it doesn't work. Okay? If the books were giving good, solid answers on what men can take action on and what women can take action on as a team, men would respond and read these books. But these books are awful, okay? A man is not as exploratory with connection as a woman, okay? As a bit of a crude example, men are excited and turned on in Derek at understandeachother.com. That's my email. Men are turned on sexually in a couple seconds, and women need to get turned on and warm up to sexuality in a completely different way, okay? This is not explained that well in these books. Also, in these books, men are actually not framed as the source of the problem. The source of the problem explains that women need to learn how to better understand men, okay? This might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the books are geared towards helping women understand men, men don't buy them. There's no reason for us to buy them, okay? So perhaps the market for self-help books just kind of evolved that way. It's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? By the way, other than me and trying to give you all this information, I want to do a plug. If you are a woman and you want to understand men, go to understandmen.com with Allison Armstrong. It's the best training ever on how to understand men from a woman's perspective, okay? So let me see. I wrote a couple notes here. So basically, our society has not incorporated a way for men to show and feel emotions. These books often represent a deep exploration into emotion. Men want answers. Men want to know, what do I do? Okay, let me tell you a couple last things. A study was done, a big psychological study, where men were put into a room and women were put into a room separately, okay? And men were put in there for a couple hours and women were put into their room for a couple hours. This study was done, I think, with like 800 to 1,200 people each time. At the end of the study, you know what they did? They asked men, what were they thinking about, okay? I hear you, Alex. We'll talk in a minute. So a man's in a room for a couple hours. What is the top thing a man was thinking about for those 2 hours? You know what the answer is? I thought it was going to be sex. The answer is sports. That's what a man was thinking about. Anybody have any idea what women were thinking about? Okay, what do you think women, sewing in the meat, what do you think women were thinking about that were sitting in a room for 2 hours by themselves? What do you think the top number one thing was that women were thinking about? Okay, men, I love that answer. I'm going to tell you so we can just get dishes. What else? What else? Give me a couple more. Tell me a couple more things. How to lose weight. Also, if you just came on, please share this out with your followers. We need to get this information out there by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions, okay? I want to tell you what the women were thinking about because I study this stuff now. I've studied this for a quarter century. The answer to what women were thinking was that they reviewed conversations. Isn't that unbelievable? I love this stuff. I love emotion and feelings, and I would have never in a billion years picked the idea that women were thinking about reviewing conversations. Okay? I'm a guy, and I'm into this stuff more than most men I've ever met. I never review conversations. And what women do is they think about what somebody said, especially their romantic partner, and they think about it and think about it and think about it. The goal being, how the hell am I going to get this man to open up and be closer to me and see and understand me? Okay, and that just doesn't happen, okay? So men, why don't you read self-help books? Because they don't do shit. You don't feel that they help, okay? And the pattern often exists between men and women where the woman gives the man advice on how to be more open, emotional, and intimate. And the problem is these books describe how to do intimacy for women, not for men. So once again, go to understandmen.com if you actually are a woman that wants to learn all about men, but not to manipulate them. You want to learn all about men as an added thing to your self-help thing, but you also want to follow my training on why you're disconnected. I'm going to teach you how to be humble as a man, how to admit what you don't know, how to do the things to have a woman calm down, be there with you, join with you. I'm going to give you the words to say, and that's going to get clearer and clearer over time. This is not a template. This is a perspective. Slow down, and I'll show you how.